Hey Phil, welcome to the Way of Champions. Jerry and I are really honored to have you on, and congratulations after another very successful Olympic cycle.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's been a whirlwind and a great few months here for USA curling. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're excited. I was saying before we started recording, 470 plus episodes, and you're the first curling coach or athlete that we've had on. So, for many of our listeners, many of whom might not even know what curling is, and their introduction to it is every 4 years in the Winter Olympics, when it comes back into the vernacular. Can you just tell people a little bit about the sport?
Yeah, curling originated back in Scotland a long time ago, and I think it had to do with some guys that were looking for something to do, and they went out on a lake and put some blocks together and decided that they'd shoot at this target. And all of a sudden, it grew into our sport of curling. Came over to Canada, came to North America, and here we are today. It was they tested it in the Olympics back in the 30s, and then never really caught on. And then in 1998, it officially became an Olympic sport. The sport, since it became an Olympic sport, our sport has taken quite a culture change, quite a just a whole change of the way the sport is played. Actually, it's been the transition has been pretty phenomenal, and it went from recreational athletes that had an Olympic dream to now athletes.
Mhm.
Guys that are training year round, just like every other, like a hockey player, like any other bobsledder, luge player, any of the other sports in the Winter Olympics. So we're proud of that transition. It's played on ice. There's four players to a team, which we call the lead, the second, the vice skip, and the skip. The skip is like the captain of the team, the quarterback. They call all the plays. They kind of run your tactical strategy type stuff for the team. There's sweeping is a huge component. Now, and you can so each player throws two stones. There's two sweepers. You can sweep the rock to make it straighter. You can sweep the rock to make it go farther, and you can sweep the rock to make it curl. You cannot slow a rock down. That's the one thing that you can't do in our sport. So that's the quick overview. We in the Olympics we play 10 ends. An end consists of all 16 rocks, eight per team, getting thrown in one direction at the target. Each team alternates. The team closest to the center after all 16 stones are completed scores. So similar to those maybe who play bocce ball, after you get done, the closest to the Piccolino scores. So I think the scoring is similar to that. You can score up to eight in an end, which is very, very, very rare. But yeah, only one team can score. So you play 10 ends. Team with the most points at the end of the 10 ends wins. Most games are eight ends, except for the Olympics and World Championships. It's kind of like some of the Grand Slams in tennis, where they still have the tradition of playing five sets. We still play 10 ends in our major
Gotcha.
championships, but that's the only time you play 10 end games.
That's cool. Now you grew up in can I call it a curling family? Like you played with your dad and your grandfathers, correct?
Yeah, I did. We actually had four generations of curling in my
Wow.
family. My great grandpa played, my grandpa played, my dad and myself and other family members too. But yeah, four generations. It started, I come from Evelyn, Minnesota. So the first curling club there, I think was like somewhere around 1918 was formed. And they played in a rink where the upstairs was a curling rink and the downstairs was a hockey rink. So it was in the same building. Yeah, curling was popular in northern Minnesota just because it was so popular in Canada. So a lot of
Mhm.
the Canadians would come down across the border, bring that sport, and that's kind of how it became popular in Ablett. They actually ended up building a curling club, and it was someone who had came down from Canada that had really helped to push that, and which is still, up until probably 30 years ago, you really only saw it in a lot of the northern states for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah. I mean, talk about its growth. And I know, and we'll get to your team winning the 2018 gold medal in the Olympics, which I think was really the catalyst recently. But there's an ice rink where I live in Bend, Oregon, and the league that fills up first is curling since then, right? And I think it's like for people who can't play hockey, they want to do something on ice, can't play hockey. It's safer than broom ball, right? And it's like, and so the leagues like fill up. They're like, we need more ice for curling.
It's crazy. Like I think we could say that just in about any state or a number of the states, even in Minnesota, where it's a hotbed, we don't have enough room for curlers like Duluth, where Team Shuster's from, where Corey and Corey, who just won the silver medal, are from. They can't grow anymore because they have no space. Like they can't even if someone wants to start to curl in Duluth, Minnesota, they can't do it. They can't join a league. So it is quite the phenomenon. People love it. It's a social sport, where you can go out with your friends. It's great exercise with a sweeping up and down the sheet, playing eight ends. You're out there, but it's not like excruciating like maybe some people can't do hockey or
Yeah.
like you said football. There's maybe some injury prone. We actually make our sport pretty um, able for everyone to do because we also have sticks that they can use instead of sliding out, going into the traditional lunge slide position. There's sticks that we allow people to use to just be able to do that because we really want it to be from 8 to 80 years old of people who can really just join our sport and get to see the what we love about it. I think,
Yeah.
and one thing we're also fortunate about, which I think that helps the growth, is our athletes are they're not mainstream huge big star athletes and their mission is still to grow the game, so
Yeah.
they're talking about our sport. They're trying to grow it in different areas, like we've seen it grow down south in Texas, California, Florida. There's clubs pouncing out, Alabama. So I think that also does help, as our athletes are really genuine, they're everyday people, and they're really willing to have conversations about curling and grow the game.
Well, there's
Let
not.
me,
Yeah, go ahead,
I'm
Jared.
sorry, John. Uh, you know, I'm very intrigued by you and the mentality and the very the very essence of what I notice when I watch you perform, in the Olympics. That's the only time I see it.
Sure.
And you know, most people don't understand why you're calling. Now I'm playing devil's advocate. I know why, but why call these participants athletes? Someone comes up and says, "Come on, you're training for the 30 kilometer cross country Nordic ski event, some of the best trained athletes in the world, and you're trying to convince me that curling people are also athletes." Help our listeners to understand, because I know a little bit about how the training goes, but why don't you explain that?
Yeah, and I would say this has really taken a change even in the last 10 years. Um, but the our athletes are, they're like Korey Dropkin, for example. Let's just use him because if you watched any of the mixed doubles, I mean, the guy is a beast. Like it is amazing what he does. He's in the gym. This his summer training program was with hockey players, so he's there lifting and grinding away with hockey players, running the same programs as them. So our athletes are in the so most of our athletes who train out of the Twin Cities, we work at the training house, Twin Cities Orthopedics. It's the training house. It's right next to where the Vikings train, and they're working. They are there every morning, 6 a.m. They do their 2.5 hour workout with our strength and conditioning trainer. They're doing the same types of stuff to prepare because sweeping is such a crucial point, such a crucial aspect of our game. And for those watching, like the stronger you are, the more upper body strength that you have, the more you can do with the stone. So you're able to manipulate the path to keep it straighter, to make it curl, to take it farther. And that's just why the emphasis in the last 10 years. And I think partly it probably dates back to 2016 when we really discovered, which is crazy for a sport that's been around so long, how much of an impact sweeping can really have. There was never the belief pre-2010, pre-2015, honestly, that you could curl a rock all of a sudden with sweeping, or you could be as effective with sweeping. So I think partly it's the great ice conditions they get. It's the change in the brooms, and what the brooms look like, similar to like golf. All of a sudden, people start hitting the ball a lot farther with technology. So I think that the change is when curling started to become more mainstream in terms of people being interested in it. Now the technology changed. We had smarter people that were saying, looking at the science of it, and so that's really had an interesting change in the game, which is then pushed this fitness side of the bigger, the stronger we are at lead and second at our first two players, our main sweepers, the better we are. And then also there's the fact of being able to be strong enough to be able to throw the rock harder, to be able to make various shots across the sheet. Because the harder you can throw it, the more weapons that you have in your toolbox. So that's so. But yeah. So long story short, our athletes they're training the same way the other athletes, whether they're playing hockey, basketball, baseball. I would probably even say we probably are training a lot more than some of the baseball players out there or others.
In what aspect does age impact? I think that's another question I get often. Like, what about age? Like a 37-year-old basketball player like Steph Curry, he's about done, right? And there are some freaks out there at 40, but what about the age? Like could a 40-year-old decide, you know what, I really love this sport. Maybe I can go to the Olympics. Is that a realistic concept to consider with this sport? Help us understand that.
Yeah, I mean, no, not at um, we do have some older athletes, as you guys have seen, as you saw with, we had Rich Ruonen, who was the oldest U.S. Winter
Yeah.
Olympic. Um, Now that's a one-off. Rich is a mentor to his team. He was with, as you saw, he was with Team Casper, who was a bunch of young kids who needed someone to have experience to help them, and he served that role. But you see the trend because of the time, because of the effort that you have to put in, your training hours that you're putting in. Our age went from probably in 2010, where the average age was mid 30s, to now it's coming down to you're seeing the 20s to 30s. People are hitting your best years are usually 30 to 35 because you have enough experience to understand what the parts of the game that are important and the tactical side. So, and then you also notice the older players are traditionally your skips, your captains, like John Shuster. John Schuster is still one of the best minds in the sport. Like 2018 Olympic gold medalist, but he is so smart. He can hang around and still play the game. He just won our men's national championship on Sunday, which was his 11th national championship. I talked to him last night. I mean, he talks about the toll it takes on his body, though. He's 40, I think he's 43 years old, and just the toll it takes, to be able to play. I think they played 12, 11 games in a week. We're playing. That's the other thing to point out. Like at the Olympics, like our athletes are playing way more games, way more competitions than any athletes out there. So that's another reason as to why they have to be in such good shape. Like some of the losers or the skaters, there's seconds or a few minutes that they're performing at the Olympics. Our athletes are out there, they're playing. I think Corey played 11 games to win a silver medal,
Mhm.
and a lot of times for the men's and women's games you're out there for 3 hours, so they're out there performing in 11 games. That's 33 hours they're out on the ice, right? So
Yeah.
it does get pretty intense at those world championships and
Mm.
Olympic games.
I want to touch on just talking about the importance of experience and you as a program director and in the past as the coach, putting an experienced head with a young team because you had a quote, an article I read about you that said the only way to prepare for the Olympics is to go to the Olympics, like to understand the pressure and the mentality. Jerry and I are just kind of putting the finishing touches on a book about being like team captains, leaders. And this is one of, the things that we've talked about is the responsibilities, but the qualities is sort of like this steady head, this steady presence. You can't get too emotional. You have to be, we call it, not the thermometer, but the thermostat. You have to know how to raise the temperature and lower the temperature. And because those young players are looking at you, right? They're looking at you when the pressure is really, really on, or there's a bad call, or there's some sort of thing. They're looking at how you're reacting or responding in that moment. So, can you talk about that, how you put those teams together, and why someone like that, who might not necessarily be the best player, but they're the best teammate in that moment and they're the best leader?
Yeah, it is so crucial. Team culture is such an important piece of curling, and making sure that team has every piece to be able to, to be able to succeed. It's the person that can handle the pressure. It's the person that can bring the energy when maybe things aren't going well out there. They can flip it around and bring the energy. There's the tactician who can just bring things down to black and white and say, "Hey, what are we doing out here?" So it's an intriguing study actually. If you think about a curling team with only four players, there's not a lot of other sports that are like it. There's three person basketball out there. Some could compare it to beach volleyball with a two person, but it is a really unique sport, and the amount of communication and trust that you have to build within those four players, but then also the alternate and the coaching staff. We as a coach, as you guys know, you have to have that calming influence when things are getting tough, when emotions are high, when you're in the first game at the Olympics and you can tell everybody's a little bit on edge. You have to be able to flip, to maybe bring some humor, to just lighten up the team meeting, or to lighten up what's going on. It's even I've found even using distractions to get their mind off what they're actually, they're so hyper focused on, this is the first game of the Olympics, or this shot will get me into the to a game to play for a medal, or we really need to. They get outcome focused instead of just staying in the moment, staying in the processes. And that's the one thing we've tried to do in USA Curling is build processes, build systems within a team that can allow you to be successful. So when things get tight, when the pressure's on, what do you go back to? You trust the processes, you trust the practices, and you trust your teammates. So that way you're able to get yourself through those very tight moments. And
So
then a key coach on the bench that can continue to reiterate, that's really important.
so you basically search for a coach like Snoop Dogg,
Yeah, right. We just,
right? I mean, doesn't
yeah,
that fit in?
yeah. I mean,
What
you
was
got to
that
be.
like? Tell us about that.
That's fun. It was, anytime we can get someone to come to our game to get exposed to curling is awesome. And then, you look at Snoop Dogg, who's really pushed the Olympic movement. He's been there for the summer games, now the winter games, and then to have Cory and Corey's faces on his jacket, sitting with Corey's mom, who like didn't even know who he was, like, or didn't know really about him. And she's the perfect person because here's this lady who's been like a coach and an instructor for her whole life. She's sitting with Snoop. She's able to give him play by play, and she's just like the guy sitting from next door. She's just,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was perfect. And Cory and Cory loved having it. It was a great game for him to come to. We're playing Canada. Um, People had heard he was coming. I actually think the other teams were just like, "Oh my God, Snoop Dogg's coming!" And we're like, "Well, he's our coach." Like, you know. But
He's
no, and
our
then
coach.
He's our
our
coach.
coach, our guy. Like, he's not cheering for you guys, because we have good relationships with the other athletes and coaches, and so it was great to have him there, get him out on the ice, just to kind of get his exposure, and he was able to bring excitement to our athletes as well.
Yeah.
How did he do? Because I mean, I saw some of the videos of him learning to ski, and that wasn't going so hot. So
He's not going to be on the 2030 team. Let's put it that
yeah.
way. yeah, but he had fun with it, and part I embarrassed the heck out of my athletes. Part of my last journey here, I had a selfie stick which I used to do videos and pictures and do all crazy stuff, and I brought it out, and they're like, "No, no, you are not bringing that out with Snoop Dogg." And I'm like, "Oh yes, I am."
Mhm.
And I asked Snoop, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we got to do the selfie stick." And they were afterwards, they were like, "This is the best picture we have of with him." So it was fun. It was, and it's just like I said, in a long week where there's a lot of pressure and a lot of things going on, being able to bring fun things in like that just helps, I think, with the athletes and relax their nerves and really remember what they're there for.
It's amazing how important that is, that take the edge off. And sometimes it's like just, have a joke of the day or something like that that makes you laugh and gets you out of your own head for a moment. I think it's too often across every sport ignored, is like, no, you need to focus, you need to be serious here in this moment. And I think every athlete's different, and some need to tune in and some need to tune out. And I think the art of coaching is recognizing who needs what, right?
Adaptable. I mean, I tell my coaches that's the number one quality that I need you to bring when you're coaching curling, because you need to be adaptable, because you're going to have four completely different athletes. We need to have 40 different athletes because we need them to bring different types of things to the team. And so as coaches, we need to adapt to what does each player need to bring out the best of them. And yes, you know, our lead might need some humor, and our skip might need some tough love, and you have to be willing to do both of them to be able to bring the best out of each one of them.
Yeah. I think that goes to, in your USA curling bio, it says, a coach should be athlete centered and coach driven. So can you just talk about what that means to you? And we can go down this for a while because I know that means a lot to Jerry and I as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we need to do, or what we try to build within our coaches, is really to have relationships with all of our athletes, so that um, we when we what we can do to, whether it's in practice, what do they need, how do they need to be successful, how do we run a practice to get the most out of them. So I take probably the softer approach of, like, let's sit down, let's get to know them, let's get to know what makes them tick, let's get to know, what things bother them, and be okay to talk about those things. And with the athlete centered, I believe that we have to have very open conversations with our teams. We need to be willing to talk about the tough stuff. I say in curling, the best coaches are the coaches that listen the best. So we have older athletes, right? Like a lot of times we're working with athletes in their 20s and 30s. So, it's our job to start conversations, but when there's team dynamic issues or problems out there, we need to sit back and listen to what our athletes are actually feeling, and actually saying if we're going to help them change any types of systems within their structure. And you also have to provide that safe place where athletes can feel comfortable speaking open about if there's an issue that's going on, if there's what things teammates are doing that make them feel good, which ones don't. I struggle, or I feel like coaches in curling struggle when they're just consistently talking at athletes, trying to tell them what to do. I see that as probably a football model.
Mhm.
When you have 50 athletes and someone really needs to be in charge, and a lot of times the head coach will be talking at the team and delivering messages. Now he'll probably have an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, line coaches that are doing what I'm like what our coaches are doing in curling to get the best out of their athletes. But in particular, I just think it's so important for us to listen, provide spaces for them to make improvements, and to really center what we're doing around them.
Yeah. I mean, Jerry, I have to think that resonates with everything we hear, right, Jerry? And the first thing that
Um,
that Phil said, right? Like it starts with relationships with athletes, right, Jerry?
Absolutely. Yeah. What I'm really learning here, which is fabulous, is you're no different than an NBA basketball champion team. in terms of the culture. I mean, this whole concept of listening, what I'm really learning is it's so important in a sport like curling.
Yeah.
We know it's important in a sport like basketball or hockey. We're working with the NHL Sharks recently.
Yeah.
We had this conversation, the whole coaching staff, the importance of listening and establishing the relationship game. What I really love what you're saying, Phill, is this idea of when you listen, you get a sense about how the athlete is feeling. And as we all know, science has now proven that feelings equal function.
Exactly.
So at the Olympic level, your performance is going to be based on how you feel and how that's related to you as a coach having a skill set of being able to listen closely. What's going on with this person? Did his brother lose his dog this morning? Is his mother in the hospital? And how is that going to impact him? And you bring in someone like Snoop Dogg, and now they're laughing and they're feeling this, and all those feelings are how they're functioning. So what I'm learning, John, is this really truly is a sport in that sense, even though it doesn't have the notoriety, or not notoriety, that's not the right word, but the popularity of
Yeah.
some of the more Western sports that we as we know them. But you're nodding yes, Phill. So why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, one thing that I do think we've really done a much better job in, I think the last 4 days is making sure that everyone's roles are defined. Like what what job does everyone have on the team, whether it's the coach, whether it's the alternate, or whether it's the four players. When we go into an event, we need to, or a season, talking about that, not just at the beginning of the season, because I think we used to do that. I'm dating myself, but when I first started coaching, we used to do that and probably didn't review it as much. Now it's a consistent part of every conversation. Is like, all right, how are we doing with what our roles are on the team? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing out on the ice? And then when something doesn't go right, we can go back to the roles and responsibilities of each player and hold someone accountable for it. And it doesn't have to be, well, you're not doing this, you need to do this better. No, we just go back to what our
Hmm.
systems are and our team's roles and our team responsibilities. And I also think, as important as listening is, we also have to use our eyes as coaches, which I think in curling it's is easy for us because we're right there, we're watching the game, and we can tell when we're starting to lose a player, um, or if they're struggling. What we call it is they're kind of floating off on the sheet by themselves. So they might be standing alone. They're not engaged with the team. So we need to bring them back. Like we need to know, okay, with this particular player, how do we get them back, or how do we help them in that moment? So I do think that's also as much as important as listening is. Sometimes it's not always just listening. We do have to have that recognition of where someone is at emotionally out on the ice as well. If they, are they too hyped, or is hyped great? Like I don't know if any of you watched during the mixed doubles, like Corey Dropkin brings energy like no other athlete is brought in curling, and he's at his best when he does that. Like I had a lot of people actually ask me, like, his highs and his lows and managing them. And I'm like, he is living his best life out there. He's trying to be a little kid who started curling back at, 8 years old, running up and down the sheet. And he's worked so hard to get to this level. And he's just out there living life. And it's okay for him to do that because he's got a teammate in Corey TC who Corey's the fire, she's the ice. She's stone cold. She's in the moment. She's the one that's going to make the last shot. She's so it's just so unique how every athlete is different and what every athlete needs is different. I had multiple media outlets ask me about Corey Dropkin, and is it too much for curling? I think the Swedish TV were pretty critical of him, and it was saying it was unsportsmanlike to be as energetic and as excited out on the ice because it's a gentleman's sport. And I asked them I mean, what my response was to them the last time I looked is we're at the Olympics and we're playing a sport, and excitement is part of every sport. When's the last time? I mean, you look at a soccer, what they call football game. I mean, athletes are going crazy out on the field and when they score, and so I think it's great for our game. I think it's going to bring a new level of viewership into or excitement about our sport because, to be honest, I wouldn't want to watch a game where people are just going through the motions and they're, they, oh, nice shot and go on with their way. Like you want some excitement, and at least I do. I like to
I,
be,
I mean, no one's arguing that golfers shouldn't celebrate or
yeah,
bowlers shouldn't celebrate, right? Like, I mean, so why shouldn't someone, yeah, like you said, we're at the Olympics. You're not supposed to be excited. You're supposed to just like you know, have a great shot and sip a cup of tea. Like, come on.
no, and the crowds were amazing. Probably the best crowds I've ever experienced at an Olympics. The Italian crowds were fantastic. Corey played to them. We're playing Italy in the semifinal game, and he's building off of the crowd that's cheering against them, and he loved it. And then we had a good chunk of Americans there, so then they'd get loud, and it was just a really fun environment. Probably the most that semifinal game was probably the most fun game as a coach I've ever experienced,
Ah,
which how exciting it was.
that's awesome. And again, you're like you said in the beginning, we're trying to grow the sport, grow its knowledge about it and its popularity and all that. Well, we need to make it exciting so people come and watch and tune in, or they're not going to. So we do have that responsibility. It doesn't, and again, it doesn't mean be disrespectful, but that's not what was happening there. That's just exuberance, and if we can't do that, then we, we shouldn't be here.
Yeah, no, I agree, and yeah, and it's the other thing, since we're on the coaching thing, and I'll just touch on this quickly, and you can go with it where you want. But there's we have a great staff, I believe, and that's part of why we're successful at USA Curling, from the team coach to myself, and we also have a data person that's crunching the numbers that will which is somewhat new to our sport. Like we're crunching numbers on each stone is different, so our coach Theron is tracking draw percentages and percentages that each stone has while it's thrown by every single team. So, and then he gets a predictability of, okay, this stone is predicted to throw this percent in this next game. So we add that data onto it, then plus the scouting reports of the teams that we're playing, and we're making decisions on the bench based on, I guess you could say, Moneyball. Like
Yeah.
we're looking at the stats and we're saying, hey,
Analytics. Yeah.
analytics. Well, I mean, it's new to our game, and I'll say, like in 2018, we weren't using that when we won the gold. I mean, we weren't doing that, and this Olympics, we as a country, we really dove into it. And I know there were other countries that are doing things, and we had some of it in 2022, but this year we really dove into it, and I feel like it it takes a village to win, to have success, to do well at Olympic Games. And there's a strength and conditioning coach, sports psychology. We have an athletic coach. You have your bench coach, your head coach. I mean, it's and I think, as you guys know in coaching, the most successful coaches are the coaches that can understand they don't know everything and surround themselves with good people. And that's what I've tried to do, is bring in experts and listen to the experts. Don't just have them there. And I think that's an important piece of being a successful coach, is having a great support team.
Mm. Can you just, I don't know if this is the perfect time to bring it up, but um with all the analytics side of things and what's influencing, and you've talked about how the sweeping and all that. There was obviously in the Olympics the quote cheating scandal, which got a lot of things. How would someone brushing their finger against the stone as they take their hand off influence things? I was curious about that as someone who doesn't know a lot about the sport.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you my personal opinion on it. I think it was blown out of proportion. To be
The
quite
media
honest,
blew something out of proportion, Phil. That's
and
shocking to me.
I think there were some teams that did too. Like there was
Yeah.
some teams, and the way the Canadians responded probably didn't help. But to be honest, like those guys are great guys. Like
Hmm.
they have been around the sport for a long time. And we had a national coach or head coach meeting with World Curling that took place in the middle of this. And I went to that, and I was the first one to speak up and said, I don't care if you're touching the rock. I don't care what you're doing, as long as you do it before the hog line. For those, because I think that was everyone saw that's the important piece. As long as you're doing it before the hog line, nobody cares. Like
Yeah.
we have sports that can help to, like if you're that good at one little poke is going to help put that rock 150 feet in the right spot, go ahead, have at it. Like, so our stance as the U.S. team and was, sure, maybe they didn't handle it, the aftermath or what all that stuff, but the actual touching of the stones doesn't matter. It's not going to have an effect, or if it does have an effect, it's an effect that you can fix with sweeping, so it wouldn't matter. And it just becomes habit, I think, for some of the players is, they throw the stone and it just maybe grazes the back of the stone. Now, Mark poked it a little bit, sure, but still, like it was, yeah, I just think it was blown out of proportion. I don't think it has. The World Curling has some work to do around fixing the rules, or at least making the rules a lot more clear. But I don't
Yeah, like
believe
do
that.
whatever you want before you get to the hog line, and
Yeah.
then
Then
that's very easy
that's easy. Like, it's easy to it's easy
judge.
to judge. Yeah. So the Canadian guys are great guys, and they were not cheating or trying to cheat or trying to get an advantage over anyone. Yes, there was a rule that was there. It wasn't that maybe could be portrayed as breaking a rule, but that was why they started to stop policing it, because it's really almost impossible to catch it and know if someone's touching the handle or touching the stone and they're grazing it. And yeah, so again, I think it was blown out of proportion. I think the World Curling handled it in once we had the meeting, they handled it correctly. All the coaches were on board with, let's stop policing this. Let's just let the players play.
Yeah.
Let's focus on all the great things that are happening with this Olympics, and a lot of people watching it and a lot of people coming into our sport. So
Yeah.
uh, props to them for handling it right, once they got a handle on it. And I was happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah. So let's go into you. I mean, you knew before the games that this was it, right? This is your fourth Olympics. You were going to be stepping away. How did that change your experience of the Milan games?
I wasn't sure, how announcing that early would affect me, or affect anything. But I did have a conversation a couple of years ago with our CEO. Told him I've got, two kids that are 9 and 12 that I'm missing way too many things for. And I had a conversation with my wife and just said, hey, this is it. I'm gonna go all in here. We're gonna do whatever we can to have have US have our best finishes that we can, and feel like I'm leaving the program in a good spot, or leave like USA Curling's in a great spot. And our CEO Dean Guillermo came to me. We had some changes in staffing in June, and he said to me, he's like, I just need you to. He's like, let's just go all in, do everything you can here, to get us, because we weren't qualified for the Olympics yet.
Yeah.
We didn't qualify our men's and women's teams until December, and he said, you do everything you can to get our teams qualified in December. We'll support you. We'll give you the reign to do what you want to do what you need to do with your teams to prepare. And so I think, that just really, I think, encouraged me, motivated me to want to make sure we got our coaches in the right preparation. We had our athletes in the right preparation. We got them on the ice earlier in July, versus starting in August. We just did a few things different that allowed us to be better prepared, I think. And for me, it was, I think, just not worrying about what decision I would make and if it would impact me long term, because there was no long term. It was what I feel like is the best for in the moment to have success. So I do think that was freeing to some extent, and And not that it might not be, but it was. And I think what I wanted to do, and which we've been trying to do for a number of years, is to really bring that one Team USA mentality to have our teams push each other. So we scheduled an event in August, which was a little bit of was a play down for what we call our Pan Continental Championships. So brought our three best women's teams, three best men's teams, and I wanted to use that as a moment where we could push each other to become better. And it was kind of the start of that trend. And it really allowed Team Shuster and Team Casper to form this bond and just push each other all season. But then also our men's teams helping our ladies teams and supporting our ladies teams. And I was looking back, like that's one of the best things I've been able to take away from this last year is we've really brought both Team USA men's program and women's program together. We had a training camp before our Olympic our what we call the OQE, our Olympic qualifying event up in northern Minnesota, where we had the men's, the women's, and our mixed doubles team all there working together, figuring out some tactical things, some technical things that would help both teams. And looking back, I'm really happy with where our program is, with where our teams are working together. And John Shuster has been an integral part of that, and his team, and Chris Plies, veterans that have taken some of these younger guys under their wings. As soon as they lost the Olympic trials final, they were all in to help Danny Casper's team be successful. To me, that's the definition of a great program, when you have athletes that have lost that are willing to help the other athletes for the betterment of the country. And yeah, that was kind of where we were hoping to go by the end of and to obviously get two teams qualified, or all three teams qualified for the Olympics. So I mean, I think we checked a lot of the boxes, and our goal was to be able to bring home a medal for sure from the Olympics. We checked that box. So it was a lot of work, but I think we had a great partner in the USOPC. They jumped in and supported us when we were short on staff. And yeah, I think it was, anytime you can bring everything together,
Yeah.
it's
Jerry, I feel like what Phill just talked about in terms of supporting your opponents, I always think, I always forget the Latin for competing. Can you just add that one in here?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking, John. You read my mind with that. Yeah, in Latin, the Latin root, the word is compatire, which means, translated, it means to seek together
I
our
like
individual greatness, so that your opponent, an opponent, someone you oppose, is this. And compatiere is a partnership where you do this, your hands dance together, so that I push you to a certain place, and you get the most out of yourself because I was pushing you, and then on another day you're pushing me back. So you do this dance of hands. In Chinese, it's called tui so,
so.
but the Latin compatiere is to seek together, which is just a wonderful way of looking at it. And the sport itself, from what I'm learning about it, and I am still learning a lot, it really lends itself to that, you
Yeah,
know. And I like this idea. There's an expression in the Olympics, for Olympians, that you don't win silver, you lose gold.
yeah,
And and that still permeates the hearts of many athletes and many coaches. And when I'm listening to you, it doesn't sound like was there any moment that the team thought, geez, we could have had gold, and what's wrong with us, and why didn't we? That kind of mentality.
you know, I, I mean, sure, I think they were bummed out to to not win, but I think we looked at it as a whole, and we your goal is to get to the Olympics to win a medal, and they did that, and they lost to a team that just played better. It wasn't like both teams. We knew it was going to be evenly matched. We played them in the round robin. It came down to the last shot. They were a world champion. We're a world champion. Like it was going to be a heavyweight battle, and we Isabella shot 98% against us, or some damn thing like that, and I
Mm.
mean. sometimes you have to tip your hat to the other
Yeah.
team and say, great job. Like,
Yeah.
so I do feel like, sure, they were bummed to not win the gold, but they were dang proud of bringing home a silver. It was our first
Yeah.
time in mixed doubles. Korey TC becoming I think those things will be becoming the first female to ever win a medal for USA curling. I think those things went, were so much in the journey that they had for
Yeah. Yeah.
so we looked at it as a positive, and
Yeah.
I think from the coaching staff, we continued to push it to be a positive. Like
Yeah.
we looked at it that way, so it helps the athletes to look at it that way too. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Which goes back to that compatibility again. I mean, if that could be part of the mentality,
Yep.
then ultimately you're going to be at your best level. And as you say, the better team won. They were
Yeah.
better that day. And
100.
hats off to them.
Yeah.
And to what degree does the bronze medalists push you to a place where you bring out your best because they're chasing you and you're chasing them. So everybody's working together to see, let's see how good we can be. And you just stand on the podium with your arms around each other. It's like, thank you so much for being here. Like, like, God, if it weren't for you, we would not have gone this far. And I think, back in the days when the Olympics started with, who's it, Pierre de Coubertin,
Yeah. Yes.
right? The whole purpose of the Olympics, at least according to him, was to compete together.
Yeah. And I
And that's why we went to different countries, and that's why it's important to have different countries to get the whole diversity going. And like, how do the Italians do, and how do the Americans do, and how do the Canadians do, and how do we all do and help each other come together so that we can be our very, very best.
yeah, it is, and I think that's the great thing about our sport is that you are competing on the road quite a bit against each other, and you build these friendships and you build these bonds, and you see, I mean, quite frankly, you see what Scotland is doing, their program. I mean, they've got an immense amount of money, and they've got like 10 times the amount of money that we have in a budget for a year, and Canada similar. But you look at what they're doing and it pushes you to be better, even though we may not have the money to be able to put together a program like them. We're able to take the things that we feel they do well, bring in our own stuff that we do really well, and
Hmm.
do more with less. Like, and I
Hmm.
think that's an important part of that is like we really have to. Our athletes still have to work. Our athletes still have to have financial support to be successful. Their athletes are full-time athletes, so we know we're against the eight ball, but we also make the best of it and don't use that as an excuse. And I think that's an important piece from the coaching side of it is it would be easy to just throw our arms up in the air and say, well, we don't have the money. We don't have the support that these other countries have. No, that's okay. Let's do more with our dollar than they can do with theirs, and let's get more out of what we have. And I think if we can deliver that from a leadership message, then it resonates with our athletes as well.
Hmm.
What's
They must have a lot of support on the mental level too, and the psychological level. Does the
Yeah.
U.S. team do you guys employ?
Yep.
Uh,
We have a sports psychologist, Dr. Carly Anderson from Premier Sports Psychology she works with us. She's been with us for 12 years. So that's been a staple of our program is to have our athletes focusing in getting mentally stronger, to be able to work through some of these emotional things, and be willing to open themselves up as a person to become a better teammate.
hmm.
Love it. Um,
John?
what's next? What's next for you? I know you're a passionate baseball and youth football coach as well, right? Like you're not quitting coaching.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go into probably, like I said, I mentioned a different role with USA Curling. I do want to keep my passion in coaching education. We need to build a pipeline of coaches in our country, and not just warm bodies, but we need to build a program that they can utilize to, when they're at their club in Oregon, or they're at their club in New York, how do they teach fundamentals to their kids? And that's not something that we have currently there's not a lot of. I mean, if you look across the country, there's not a lot of coaches in
Hmm.
the world in curling.
Hmm.
So, and it's becoming such an integral part of our game. The one thing I didn't touch on was coaching. Is coaches couldn't talk to their players like up until this Olympics, so 2020, 18, 2022, and previous. You could only speak to them prior to the game and at the fifth end break. Now we're constantly communicating, so coaching has become even more important. So I would love to dabble in that, as long as it's something where I'm not having to travel a lot, and to be able to be more grounded and be at home more. But still continuing in coaching education, leadership. I wouldn't, I'll dabble in some leadership things and just supporting other coaches, whether it doesn't even have to be curling. I'm constantly trying to talk to coaches just in different areas because I do think it resonates. As you guys say, like you have to, the core concepts of coaching and being successful in coaching matter.
Hmm.
And if you are willing to be adaptable, put the athlete first, get to know your athletes, know what brings out the best in them, know what things that you do that annoy them as well, and actually be willing to reflect on what you do well and where areas you need to improve on. I think I'll support coaches in doing that as well.
I love
I
that.
think I think it brings up for me your last statement there, Phill, was the importance of the quality of vulnerability in coaching.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
like a Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors could walk into a locker room, has no problem saying to the team, you know what, guys, I blew that. That was on me. I
Yeah,
could have done a better job, and I'll prepare you better next time.
yeah.
And I kind of heard that in your voice, or you said something, and which I think is an amazing observation.
We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes, and I think coaches that understand that. I think I mean, I can remember. I can't remember what game because there was so many games, but when we went back to them and like our team and we're like, yeah, we got that wrong. Like there was something,
Yeah,
was a technical thing or something we
yeah,
did. Yeah, we
yeah,
got that wrong. So we'll be better next time. We'll be better prepared for it. We adjusted a little system that we had
yeah.
with the team, and if you yeah, and there's just so many coaches. I would call it. I'm guessing you guys do too. Is the old school coaching model of whatever they say goes and has
Mm.
to be right. That's just
Yeah.
not what the best out of people, no matter
Yeah,
what.
it's important for our listeners to hear you say that, because here's a quote unquote obscure sport that many of them don't know much about. To hear a head coach talk about the importance of vulnerability in their coaching system, the young coaches that are listening to this podcast, the more they hear that, the better they'll be at it, because that is really a strength. Vulnerability, as we know, is really a sign of inner security and strength.
Yeah, the quicker you learn that as a coach, the more success you're just going to have
There
because
you go.
you're gonna get that respect from your athletes, and once you get the respect from your
Yeah.
athlete, you're going to allow them to be the best version of themselves when they're out there because
Yeah.
they
Mm.
feel
Well,
that.
I blew this program. I could have done a better job in my questioning and stuff like that. So I just want people to know that I'm being vulnerable here.
Well,
No, but
we'll be cutting Jerry at the end of this. He's
my salary will be definitely trimmed.
um Phill, thank you so much. I mean, great stuff. I love, like Jerry just said, the end of, what makes a successful coach. And I think that's the biggest challenge, I think, in coach education because people show up wanting the technical skills. And what we have to constantly convince them is these are the foundation, these are important. But if you want to be an effective coach, it's the interpersonal skills that are going to make or break you.
Huge. Yeah, it is. I mean, you can be the best technical coach in the world, and when it comes down to game time to have to win that championship, you have to be able to relate to your athletes, and you have to be
Brilliant.
able to
Brilliant.
almost all.
Well, if people want to get in touch with you or touch base, what's the best way for people to look you up and find you?
Yeah, I mean, they can find me on my Instagram handle at Coach Phill. My what is it, X now, X at Coach Phill, or on the USA Curling website. my email address, which is Phill with two L's Drobnick at usacurling.org. So pretty easy to track down, pretty easy to find. Happy to help her and support any coaches that are, looking for some advice or looking for help. I'm an open book when it comes to that.
Why
Brilliant.
two L's in Phil?
Yeah, I think my mom wanted me to be different, and she's definitely succeeded.
I love it.
That was the
I
most
love it.
important question. We should have asked that one first.
Yeah, and you are different in a great way.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time and appreciate the work that you guys do for coaches across the country.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on, Phil. Well, Jer, that was fun. I mean, I don't know a lot about curling, and it was good to get the insider scoop, but it's amazing how here's another sport, another collection of humans, and they're talking about the same thing.
Yeah,
Right?
the only thing I know about curling is when I get into bed and I just curl up and pull the covers over my head. I learned a ton here, John. I think the big thing for me was, one of my sons, Sean, said to me, "Geez, I can go to the Olympics. I could be a curler," because he really fell in love with the sport. And I said, "I don't know. I'm going to be talking to the head coach. I'll find out for you." And boy, did I find out. They're athletes.
Yeah.
My son might be 20, 37 years old, but he's telling us, "Oh no, low 30s, 20s. These are athletes who train like the best of them." And so, it's pretty cool to see that it is a justifiable sport to be in the Olympics. It has all of the components, right? He talked about the mental training, he talked about the physical training, the emotional training. All of that came together in this conversation to convince me that this is a very important sport. And the thing I learned about him most is how humble he is. I mean, he's a coach at the top of the game of the sport itself.
Oh, I mean, you've been to
And
four Olympics,
right?
you've
Yeah.
learned so much
Yeah.
from other sports, from getting
Hmm.
people there. I mean, like we said, it's still the Olympics. Like,
Yeah.
and you want to win a medal and you want
Yeah.
to compete your very best. And I mean, he had a team that won gold in 2018. It's like
Yeah.
this is, you become this incredible coach and
Yeah.
experience, and he's still a young guy. He's got
Yeah.
young kids. I mean, he's going to
Yeah.
be pouring into people for decades more.
Yeah. I feel, and what really it gives me some good ammunition. Ammunition isn't a word I like to use, but some good information. Let's put it that way, because people are talking to me and they say things like, "Well, how can you get a gold medal for curling, yet Lindsey Vonn can ski down at 100 miles an hour, break her leg, have three operations? And how can you tell me that the medals are equal? They're not." But you know what? If you really go back to the essence of sport and what it is, mentally, physically, emotionally, there's no difference. And yes, there's more danger involved for life-threatening danger. But in terms of the essence of sport isn't determined by the amount of danger. The sport just happens to have that, right? So it gave me a way to have a conversation with people who claim that a gold medal in curling is not deserved as much as a downhill skier. Am
Yeah,
I making sense?
or like a ski jumper. Like there's a lot of danger there if you're
Yeah.
flying 100
Bobsled.
meters and
Bobsled.
crashing,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're not awarding medals
Luge.
based on danger.
No,
And
that's
again,
right.
these curlers have spent decades perfecting
Hmm.
and they're
Hmm.
in the weight room and they have to be strong and whatever. Again, I think why people love it in the Olympics is because it looks approachable, right? And you can then go up if you have a curling league in your town, go sign up and be like, "Oh yeah, I could do that." Like I don't think anyone watches ice hockey who's never skated and goes, "Pff, I could do that," you know?
Yeah.
Like so you do it, but like any sport, when you do it, you're like, "Oh man, this is hard," right? Like I think of like people watch an expert rock climber do something. You're like, yeah, I can climb a wall, right? Then go
Yeah.
rock climb, and like a
Yeah.
minute later, your
Hmm.
forearms are cramping up because
Hmm.
you're not using your legs right, and you're not, it's like no, it's these are incredible skills, and so I
Yeah.
enjoyed that, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed just right at the end, what makes a successful coach is
Hmm.
adaptability and vulnerability and
Hmm.
compassion and
Hmm.
connection.
And
You know,
listening.
again, it's just it all goes back to that. So
The skill of listening and
skill of listening.
trying to figure out how do athletes feel because we can influence how they feel, and if we influence how they feel, they'll function at a higher level.
All right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very enlightening conversation, and what a wonderful low key, even keel kind of guy, you know?
Yeah, love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you all for listening. Thanks to Phill Drobnick for being on and USA Curling at Coach Phil with two L's. If you want to connect with him. Um, Thank you to Sprocket Sports. Thanks to our Patreon podcast champions. And thank you for everyone who supports us and is subscribed to this podcast, who listens, who shares, who sends us stuff. We love doing this every week. So
Absolutely.
yeah, amen. So your influence is never neutral. Everyone go out there, make a difference this week, and we'll see you again next week, all.